The old saying is, no news is good news. In this case, no news is news. And it is good news if you're a fan of Skip Schumacher as the next manager of the Texas Rangers. We'll clear it all up next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. So there were a couple of guys who were let down at the front of the press conference room that we were at earlier today. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. John Radigan and Jeff Wilson here in the DLLS Sports Studios with the Queen Cat over there, getting things all nice and happy around here. And the mood at the press conference today was one of, I would say, let down. I think that's a pretty good one. And also hope. That's a pretty good one. But they were tight-lipped yet as to who the manager would be, other than, Jeff, to say we have a leading candidate who is internal.
Right.
So we certainly can't decide who might that be, Jeff.
Yeah. It sounds like, and then, I asked, have you interviewed any external candidates? And they're like, nope, we haven't gotten there yet. It's like, oh, okay. Sounds like this one's going to Skip Schumacher. And so we'll see. Hopefully it's soon. It sounds like they're kind of pretty far down the road to the point where Skip has been asking questions about specifics like communication and personnel and, the coaching staff. Sounds like the coaching staff is going to come back mostly intact, but Chris Young has kind of left a little wiggle room, like, it'll be up to the manager.
Yeah.
But it sounds like a lot of guys are going to be coming back. So we need to get that one just official, make it all official, get the coaches all taken care of. And I don't know why it can't be done here next week.
I don't either, and I'm sure it will, because I think at one point CY did slip and say something about the next couple of days, next few days, or something like that he may see us all again. And, to the extent that, yes, you do want Skip Schumacher to have the opportunity to sort of bring his own guys in. The Rangers did that last offseason, right? They brought in Luis Ureta, who was Skip's, was he his bench coach as well? Yeah. And so, it's all set up for him. I got the impression as it pertains to coaches, there's zero doubt that CY wants to keep the troika of pitching coaches completely intact.
Right.
And I definitely, as he was asked about Brett Boone, I definitely felt like he was, adding some very positive notes about what Boone did this year. In particular, CY brought up the fact that since June 1st, the Rangers scored like the fifth most runs in the American League.
Yeah.
And he gave credit of that, and just basically said it was April and May where things were terrible offensively, and then we began to turn it around. No coincidence, I think, in that case, even though he didn't state it, that was right after the hiring of Brett Boone.
For sure, and he talked about how you can't change philosophy midstream,
right,
and how difficult it is, but that the changes that were implemented from Donnie Eckert to Brett Boone from a philosophical standpoint paid off. And one other thing that Chris said was that with this philosophy now in place, the hitters can go into the offseason not working on just their A swing, but on multiple swings depending on game situations. And so that certainly lends itself to either Brett Boone returning or another old school minded hitting coach returning.
Right.
Situational hitting is a big one. Having more command of the strike zone, being tough in the box, fouling off pitches, all those things. So I think that they definitely have an idea they want to go. And Chris, to that point, in talking about the offense, that it's been 2 years. There's going to be personnel changes.
Sure.
Now, he didn't say those in the same breath, but it's certainly in separate questions about the offense, those things came up. So yeah, I asked specifically about Jock Peterson and Adolis Garcia, and he gave a kind of an empathetic answer about Jock Peterson and the injury, the bad start, and putting pressure on himself, then getting ready to come out of it, and then breaking his hand, and then not being able to be much of a leader when you're hurt, and all those things. And then with Adolis, it was like, well, second straight year, and he played some good defense, but there's some things we're gonna have to revisit. So I think that that kind of we've been speculating it, and I guess it's speculation until it happens. But it sure seems like Adolis Garcia is not going to be back.
Yeah, and I would say, and that was an excellent topic, I think, for you to bring up on those two. And then independently, the topic of catcher came up.
Right.
And, they mentioned Jonah, but it seems similar in the case of Jonah Heim that they're prepared to move on. I don't know. Maybe we're just hearing what we think should happen.
What we want to hear.
And what we want to hear as opposed to what it is. But it felt to me like there was no ringing endorsement, let's put it that way, for Jonah Heim.
Yeah, it was like, well, Jonah's still arbitration eligible, something we have to look at.
In our personnel meetings.
Right,
yeah, right. So,
and, but they were like, Kyle Higashioka, he's under contract for next year. Like, hey.
Yeah, that's good.
And then
that's
Jonah,
good.
he's still ARB eligible, but something we need to look at.
And CY did talk about the fact that there are, so many still controllable players that are part of the core of this team, and talked about how good that is. And it really is good because $140 million is tied up in basically 5 players. So that only leaves $100 million or less to construct the rest of the team.
Right. And so that's kind of how Marcus came up.
Right.
In that context. And because he has a big contract and is coming off of 2 down years. And Chris's answer about Marcus was, we saw a pretty long stretch of Marcus being Marcus, but it was those first 2 months, and then he was hurt, and how weird it was not to have him in the lineup, and that Marcus works very, very hard, and he's still talented enough and driven enough to make changes and rebound, and the Marcus Semien of 23 is still in there, basically. So is he selling the fans who are skeptical of Semien that, he's going to be back and he's going to be good? Or is he trying to sell other teams that might be interested in Marcus Semien? So, that is one way to save money. Yes, they would have to eat a hefty chunk of this contract, but you're still saving money. Somebody else is still paying part of that contract. And, it was interesting where he said, about the payroll cut. They don't have the number yet. It's going to be below the CBT, which is 247 this year. But also, he said it's going to be good enough to be competitive.
Yeah.
And he said, and there are other teams out there who are in the playoffs with less.
Yeah. And that's the point.
Why can't we do that?
Right. That's the point. If the Brewers can get to the playoffs, if the Reds can get to the playoffs, heck, if the Tigers can get to the playoffs, all these teams that are spending significantly less than the Rangers. And CY said that. He said, look, we've been a top spending team for several years. I think I don't know if they were ever top 5, but I'm pretty sure they were 6th or 7th this year. And that's really that's a too high of a position to be spending at and not make the playoffs. And
right.
He acknowledged that. I think he said it's his greatest disappointment.
And I think he also admitted they were counting on the same personnel and the same philosophy to come through this year, and it didn't happen. But there's a lot of money in in 5 guys for sure with Seager, Simeon, DeGrom, Evaldi. So maybe it's just the 4 guys. I might be forgetting a 5th.
Peterson? I don't know.
Yeah, Peterson's pretty. Yeah, 8 if he picks up the option, which I think the whole world knows he's going to do.
Yeah, he'd be a fool not to. Yeah.
So it's anyway. That is a lot of money, and it kind of restricts your ability to do the things that you feel like you need to do, unless you move on from one of them or even 2 of them. I think I did ask him. When he mentioned the other night about going younger roster, what does young look like? And he said, well, Wyatt's young, Evan Carter's young, Josh Young is young. He named the young guys already on the roster. He didn't mention the old guys on the roster.
No.
But he also said it's good to have young guys with the old guys. And he mentioned specifically Cody Freeman and Michael Hellman and Alejandro Osuna and how they brought the energy that had been missing. So I would expect that those guys will be around. Just don't know in what capacity yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at this point, Cody, well, he was also asked, actually, okay, so if you're talking about getting younger, but if we go around the diamond, at this point, right field's not settled, but go around the diamond, where are these young guys going to play if everybody's healthy? Young's there, Seager's there, Simeon's there. You got to think they're going to have Berger for at least one more year there. You got Wyatt in left field, which is a young guy, presumably Evan in center field. So you have right field. One young guy? I mean,
yeah.
And I keep seeing that, next year the ideal thing would be to have Cody Freeman there as this utility player. No. First of all, there's already a great one there in Josh Smith. And second of all, this young man needs to be playing every day and continuing to develop if there's not a spot for him on this roster where he can play a lot.
No, I agree. He's not a finished product. And, Ezekiel Duran's not a finished product. Ezekiel Duran needs the everyday at-bats. Now, if it comes, I've been thinking, I think I've said it, I think it may come down to Freeman or Duran,
I do too.
as that player, because I still think they want to get, they need a guy like Josh Young because they have health concerns for, of course, Seager, probably Carter. I know Simeon wants to play every day, but at this age and with as hard as he works, would more days off benefit him and the team? Probably. If Jake Berger is going to be their first baseman and they don't have a left-handed platoon guy, well, Josh Smith might be that guy. There are a lot of things that Josh Smith can do, but then that kind of lends you to a true utility guy, and you like that guy to be a shortstop or have a lot of shortstop in him. Duran has more of that than Cody Freeman.
And Smith does.
Yeah, obviously. But Freeman can move around the diamond and played a little outfield. So that's something that we'll, as beat writers, watch, because it's always a story in spring training. Who's the last guy on the bench and all of that. But if they're going to go young, I think what Chris Young didn't say is more apt than what he did say, because he just didn't mention any of these guys who he considers to be old.
Right, and the point is, there, in my mind, I think in yours, there's almost no way they're moving the Seager contract, right, or trying.
Right,
but there's definitely a way they would at least try, and they're never going to say that because they don't want to, cause waves in their relationship with Marcus. But don't be surprised if we hear that they try that. Don't be surprised if other teams indicate they tried that. Don't be surprised if it happens.
Yeah.
Because, again, it would save money and it would open up a spot for one young guy. You can take it, if Corey Seager is one person there as your best player, but not really that emotional, not that demonstrative. But when you got 2 of them like that, the other young guys, it's human nature. They look at them, and we got to talk more about this later, but they look at them and they go, okay, is that how I'm supposed to act? Okay, I'll act that way.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember 2009 winter meetings. We were talking with Nolan at the time, and he said something to the effect of, he's talking about, we're looking at trades and all this stuff, and he was asked, is anybody, untouchable? Yeah. And he said no. And they're like, even Josh Hamilton, who just had this awesome year, he's like, yeah, they will listen on everybody.
Yeah.
If they think that it's going to make their team better,
yeah,
they will listen on everybody. And so I'm sure they will listen on these guys, but I don't think you can win I don't think the Rangers can win without Corey Seager.
No.
I think they can win without Marcus Semien, but I don't know if they can win without Corey Seager.
Yeah. So we've got so much more to talk about regarding this press conference today. We'll get to CY's thoughts specifically on 2025. More on the chemistry coming up, too. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast.
Oh, man, it's Prize Picks time. I was actually just looking at the Prize Picks app. Today is Flex Friday. If you guys have do Prize Picks, you know what that means. But Prize Picks, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's fantastic daily fantasy in which you choose a lineup, 2 to 6 players, and decide if they're going to be more or less than a particular stat. So will Arch Manning have more or less than a half a touchdown pass tomorrow? Well, I'm going to go with more. But that's kind of the thing. It's easy to do. You don't have to spend a fortune on it either. You can go for as low as $1. Now I go for $3 is my typical bet. So I'm not betting the farm here. I'm just having fun with it. It just makes your sports viewing that much more pleasurable. And again, it's daily lineups that they use, and they have these promos every day. Demons and Goblins. It's fun to read. Okay, so download the app today. Use the code DLLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DLLS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is good to be right.
Hey, have you heard about the Sweat Control Solid Stick from Mando? This baby's beautiful. It's for the fall of 2025, and you can get 20% off this bad boy, too, which is a pretty good deal. It's got this clinical sweat control, one swipe, and you're good to go. It controls both the sweat and the odor for up to 72 hours. And I'd still use it more frequently than that if I was you. But anyway, it's deodorant that's re-engineered to stop odor before it even starts. It's got double protection because it tackles both the odor and the sweat. And I'll tell you this about Mando when I'm wearing it, and depending on which fragrance you got, of which there are many, people will ask, what's that fragrance I'm wearing? Ooh. It's Mando. Shop Mando.com, please, and support our show. Tell them we sent you to Mando. Okay, so let's keep talking this Bruce Bochy, or rather this Chris Young. Yeah, and Bochy's probably a good name to bring up because CY was asked, and I said this to a couple of my colleagues after I walked in. My thought on changing coaches in any sport has always been, if you're gonna change a coach, make sure you know you have a better one to replace him. And I hate to admit this and say this and sound critical, but there's not very many out there that are better than Bruce Bochy, right?
No, that's incredibly valid point. And, it's hard to imagine that, he wouldn't be able to relate to young players.
Yeah, it is.
And Chris Young very carefully said, whatever I say about what we want on our next manager is not a reflection on Bruce Bochy. Well, yeah, it kind of is. Otherwise, he'd still be the manager.
Right.
So I would like to, it just seems like Bruce Bochy could do all the things that the new manager is going to be asked to do.
Right. And by resume, by pedigree, by history, can probably do it better.
Right.
Right?
You would certainly think so. But I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but it just seems like they wanted to move on. I mean,
right, clearly.
And so anyway, maybe we'll figure that one out.
Yeah,
one day.
and he was asked, point blank, another major league person asked one of the questioners, our friend Newey Scruggs asked him, who's better? Can you hire a manager who's better than Bruce Bochy? And CY admitted, that's a really good question. And he said, Boch is one of a kind, and he went on to praise Boch for what he's done, and never did say that he's going to hire or can hire someone better. Talked a little bit about how the new person isn't charged with filling Boch's shoes, and went into some talk about, and I can see where this would be different than how Boch was, especially later. And I don't know how he was earlier in his career when he was a little more nimble and spry, but he is not a manager who will get out there and be on the field with the players and work with the players hands-on. And CY talked about that being a part of this new process going forward. I'm obviously assuming that's something that Schumacher can do, Jeff.
I would think so. And Bruce Bochy was as hands-on as he needed to be or could be, because he was at every live batting practice.
Yeah.
Important bullpen sessions. He went out onto the field every day, stood behind the cage, watched BP. So, he was definitely involved. He didn't just, check in, put in the lineup, and then, take a nap until game time. He was out there, and talking to us and all these things. So we saw that with our own eyes. Now, I'll admit, I never saw him hit a ground ball, but I never saw Jeff Bannister hit a ground ball either. So I don't think that. I think Bruce Bochy did either whatever his body allowed or whatever he felt he needed to do. And maybe he's like, hey, I got guys who can do this, and there's nothing wrong with delegating authority.
No, and like you say, there was so much wisdom, and, he would see things, by watching one live bullpen session or watching batting practice. His experience and his trained eye would see things that most others don't. So all of that was fantastic, but that's not the direction that the Rangers want to go right now. They want this person, no doubt, a person who is younger and certainly in their mind anyway, will be able to relate to these younger players more. And so we look at the 2025 season, and Chris Young characterized that as obviously the vast dichotomy between the pitching and the defense that we've talked about so many times, and the offense. And he said there were so many players on the offense guilty of underperforming.
Yes.
And that's absolutely true. And I don't know if that necessarily falls on the manager. And if they're saying it does, then maybe it was time to make a change. But I don't think we can pin that on the manager.
100% no. I mean, I think that because we would talk to Bruce Bochy about the offensive shortcomings, and yeah, he was not pleased. He's like, we got to do what the game asks us to do, and all those things. Situational hitting. He was a big proponent and believer in that, especially when it became evident that the team wasn't going to be slugging very much, and that guys were struggling, and it's just hard to get a run. Even got to do whatever you can. So I just I don't think that if this is a blame thing, that Bruce Bochy is the one who should be taking the fall. And I guess Chris Young can't fire himself, but he's accountable and he understands he's the one who put the team together. And he basically in saying there are going to be personnel changes is admitting, yeah, I didn't put a good enough roster together. He didn't say those words.
Right.
But
and I was listening for that. I almost wished that he had, right? Like accept some of the responsibility, because certainly that responsibility for this year in particular is borne across really every aspect of the organization. Sure, the manager has some culpability. Obviously, the coaches do, but so does the front office.
Yeah, and I'm I would imagine that at some point he says that. Maybe he already has. I just wasn't there.
Yeah, I've not heard it, but I was listening.
He's definitely has said things like that in the past, so he gets it, and he wants to, win, and he wants to maintain this job because he does have a boss, and his boss could decide, all right, we've had enough of him.
Yeah,
go get us a new guy. So I think that there's a commitment there. They're going to evaluate everything in the organization and processes and all that stuff. It wouldn't hurt if these guys looked at themselves too.
Sure.
And we're like, well, where did we go wrong? What can we do better? How can I personally be better?
Yep.
And we're kind of at this point, or when something like this happens, that's how you have to look at it.
Yeah. And CY said at one point, we were basically 6 or 7 wins from the playoffs. He said, that's only 1 game per month, and was later asked about the inability or the reluctance or the just never getting a bona fide closer this season. And, he said, yeah, we never did get a bona fide closer, and he talked about that. The reality is there's 6 or 7 wins right there, Jeff, right? There's 6 or 7 wins that were blown late because there wasn't a bona fide closer. He did go on to say and talk about some of the real, what he thought were wins in the bullpen. Jake Latz, Cole Winn. He mentioned Robert Garcia, who we all know was somewhat mercurial, a little up and down, but I think they really like his stuff. And obviously, they like this guy from the left side.
Yeah. I think you can say, as much as not having a closer, just not giving the closer in the bullpen any margin for error was a big a deal. The offense did not score enough runs. We all know these relievers aren't perfect, and you could have 10 Aroldis Chapmans or Mason Millers, or 8, I guess. You can only have an 8-man bullpen. You got to have 8 of those guys, and they're not going to be perfect.
Right.
And so the Rangers didn't have any of those guys, but they did have guys who, by and large, had really good years. Sean Armstrong was fantastic. Hobie Milner, probably his best year in a long time. So there were guys who performed there, but yeah, if you don't have a margin for error, if it is 3-2 every game and you got to get 3 outs without the other team scoring a run, then at that point you go get a closer. So maybe that was a trade deadline misstep. Although, we can't really argue with Maton and Coulomb, though Maton had that stretch. They each blew a game against the Diamondbacks in early August. But I just, the point being, the bullpen could have been better, yes, but it was really damn good at a time when they were operating with no margin for error.
None whatsoever. The Latz comment there from Sean may be the story of the year for me, because it's a great point, because CY was also asked, well, you mentioned him as part of the bullpen, but is he a bullpen guy or a starter? And CY said, yeah, he could be either. He kind of showed that he can do either job, which is great for the kid, right? I mean, and if he gets a choice, he's going to want to be a starter because you get more money as a starter, right? You have a longer, a greater earning potential.
Well, that's what he did. That's what he's done his whole life, too. I mean, from Little League all the way until really he made his MLB debut as a starter.
Yeah,
in 21 amid a COVID outbreak with the team, and he's good, right? I mean, what he did this year is fantastic.
Yeah, amazing.
Makes you think that he can do it every 5th day. I would hope so. He's got the right demeanor. He has good stuff. And now he's confident that he's able to not close, but he's confident to be in a big league starting rotation.
Yeah.
And if that's the hurdle he was trying to get over, he's cleared it.
Yep.
He is over it, and it's time to let's see what he has. Especially if you're in a position where you got to save money.
Yeah.
He will save you money.
There were lots of injury updates that were brought up during the course of this thing. We'll get to those next. And we do want to get back to that culture, chemistry, camaraderie issue that we talked about. It's all coming next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. Newsletter?
Oh, yeah, the newsletter. I forgot. I don't forget about the newsletter because when I see it in my inbox, it's like the first thing I read. And you guys should want to read the newsletter as well. It comes to your inbox, and here's how you sign up for it if you're not signed up already. You go to our homepage at alldlls.com, go to the bottom, and right there, it's hard to miss. It'll say, hey, we want you to sign up for our newsletter. And all we want from you is your email address. So pump in your email address, hit the go button or whatever it is, and voila, you're on our list, and you'll be getting snippets of our handiwork that will guide you to things you want to read, things that are happening in with our team and in our coverage area, our teams and our coverage area, and that includes the Texas Rangers. So Ollie's doing a great job with it, and we want more of you to see his work and our work. So sign up for that newsletter.
Yes, and sign up to become a member of our supporters club, too. It's just a fun little thing. Doesn't cost much. Newsletter, by the way, is free. So
yeah, free.
Don't worry about that one. But, heck, the supporters club might as well be $15 or $5. We've got two levels. The $15 level pretty much gets you all the way up to sicko, which is really where we like to live. So we'd like you to live here with us at the sicko level. Either way, it's just a fun way to show you kind of who we are, what happens around here behind the scenes, how things go, how we get shows ready. We relive some of our favorite moments in being in this fun industry. At least we think it's a fun industry, and that is in sports media. So all that stuff is going to be available to you if you are. What's that, Cowboys? Yeah, so the Cowboys are going to do a video on Sunday. Got to be a part of the supporters club to have access to that. So there you go. Join it, won't you please? Okay, so this chemistry thing, I brought the question up. The, two guys up there, I brought it to the attention of Ross. I told you yesterday, I felt bad whenever Ross never got to speak at these press conferences. And in fact, so much so that at one point, every question had been going to CY, and then somebody asked him another one. He said, I'm going to let Ross talk.
Yeah,
and,
Ross.
Because the reality is Ross knows the answer to every question just as CY does. No doubt about that. They are, working so closely together that they do. Anyway, I brought it up to Ross first, and frankly, it made him squirm a little bit just about the narrative at the end of the year that there was some issues with the chemistry and the camaraderie in the clubhouse. He didn't want to admit or acknowledge that was there. We all know it was there. The follow-ups were about the Marcus Semien quote at the end of the year that we've talked about a lot where, again, paraphrasing, he basically said, I want to play with guys who want to win. CY said, I don't know the exact context of the question or how Marcus was answering the question, but I do know this. Marcus was not saying we have guys here who don't want to win. So, he supported Marcus's comments and basically said it's not it's not everything that meets the eye, Jeff. So I think that was the greatest sort of public acknowledgement at the end of the year, but there were some issues in that room.
Yeah, and I don't think that denying it is helpful. Maybe it's not as they don't think it's as bad as some of us writers do, and maybe that's been personified in the media, but it wasn't quite right. And when Chris Young talked about Jock Peterson, he was brought in part to be this great leader, and Chris was saying, well, when you can't perform and you're not performing, you're not able to be be a leader on the field, but the way you react to things and stuff like that. So, Chris Young said it's infectious when Jock Peterson is playing well and, doing things on the field that, and the way that his vibe on the field, gives off to players. Okay, great. Why don't you have another guy? Why are you relying on one guy to do that? And then, if Marcus said those things with purpose, which Chris Young says he did not, but if he did, then there's a problem. And, we're talking about a guy who's a all-star, your oldest position player on the team, or one of them, the guy who's considered the leader. And if he said that with either veiled or intentions,
any intent,
that would indicate that some things aren't right. So I think that you'll see. I think some of the personnel changes will reflect some chemistry changes. I think the manager, Skip was in. He's on the payroll. He saw a lot of what was happening and heard about a lot of what was happening, and I'm sure he intends to fix some of that. Among the questions apparently he's had, speaking generally, as Chris Young did, is questions about personnel. So there are guys apparently that Skip Schumacher really likes, and maybe some guys he doesn't like.
Right.
That he wants to have or doesn't want to have.
Yeah.
So. I think that is an issue. I think everybody thinks it's an issue. And I would say that even Chris Young and Ross Fenstermaker think it's an issue, even if it's not as big of an issue as a lot of people think it is.
Sure. And I asked specifically, does the new manager have a role in that? Because typically the reality is managers don't, right? Ron Washington didn't spend a lot of time in the clubhouse.
No.
Bruce Bochy doesn't spend a lot of time in the clubhouse. That is the player's domain. That is the team's domain. And so, but the world is changing. So are we expecting now a manager in this case, who is a former player, to perhaps try and, usher this or foster a different kind of relationship, sort of a different kind of team building? And then because they wouldn't really want to acknowledge that there was a problem, we never really got a good answer to that. But I don't think, Jeff, that falls on the manager. That's got to be organic.
I agree. The personnel they all have to like each other and get along and want to do well for the other guy and do right by the other guy, and so. That's something that the manager can mention and can try to drive home. But, I don't know that it does any good to force them to go play Topgolf together, or something like that. Maybe it does. I don't know. But, let it happen on its own. And if it's not happening, then maybe you do something as a manager. But, spring training is a great time for all these things to happen and come together. But don't just look at these moves that are upcoming this offseason as strictly personnel decisions and lineup decisions. These are there's always going to be something else behind it. And you hear Chris Young talk about the makeup component of everybody and how makeup is such an important factor that they'll take a lesser talent in the draft if he has the better makeup.
Yes.
They have guys who they want, but they also need guys who might be wonderful people, but know how to interact with each other, you know, and who want to interact with each other. And so that's something that you would think at the major league level you wouldn't need to worry about, but apparently you do.
Yes, and I think that, I'll give Josh Young a lot of credit. At the very beginning of the year, he showered every one of his teammates on opening day with a gift package of, a Yeti cooler and some Beats headphones and a gaming cube. And sunglasses and all this stuff. Is a lot of money spent. There's one at every one of the 26 lockers. I think he gave it to the coaches too. Asked him why on opening day. He said, I want to create an environment where we all just give for each other. And I really think that was in that time Josh's way of trying to he was, wise enough to look around the room and go, we don't have that here. Somebody needs to do it. Let me try it. But it's hard to be a leader when the season goes as it did for Josh. It's impossible to be a leader from Round Rock, where he spent some time. So I think that failed. So now we've noticed this at the end of the year. It seems like maybe Wyatt is ready to take over that. And that's fine if somebody just does. But they need to be confident enough, and it takes a year or two to be confident enough to say, okay, all right, I see how great those two players are, Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, but I also see that they're not going to do this, so let me do it. And I think Wyatt may be the guy. We've talked about this. You've mentioned several times it's time to get him signed up, locked up to a long-term contract, and I really think they will, and I really think that he might be very soon that guy for this team.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartely on that. And then, you kind of saw him get fired up at times, which is great. And, it just feels like he has the wherewithal to do it. He cares about his teammates. This is a young guy. He told me he doesn't want to play anywhere else. Obviously he's only been in here for 2 years, but he is committed to this organization, and there are a lot of ways to lead. It's taking care of guys off the field, just and Wyatt apparently is gravitating toward doing that too. Like you can just tell he plays with a lot more energy. He like dead sprints it from left field after every inning, and will pump his fist when he slides in safely in a big situation, and like smiles when he hits a home run. It's like, oh hey, you can't have a bunch of robots. And Wyatt does not appear to be robotic, and he even is more comfortable talking to us now than he ever has been. And so there are a lot of good things that are happening with Wyatt Langford, both on the field and then in the clubhouse. I think this is his team. In very short order, he will be the face of this team. Yeah,
all about Sports Zone wondering if the new manager, might expect to be Seager to be more vocal of a leader, especially if Simeon's gone. No, I don't think so. I don't think you ask a leopard to change its spots, right? That's not who he is. He's never going to be comfortable doing that, and you don't want to take him out of this comfort zone that he lives in, because when he's healthy, he hits like nobody else, almost like nobody else in the game. So I don't think that's happening. And then Rarities said, do you realistically see Semien getting traded? I must admit, I still have trouble visualizing it. I don't know that the Rangers would deem it to be enough of a savings by how much they would need to pay. But that's just me. What do you think, Jeff? Is it realistic?
I think it's realistic. I think you can always find the right team, the right group that's motivated. And again, all these players are scouted, and somebody out there will see what Chris Young said he saw.
Sure.
Semien, who was about to turn the corner, who had a couple bad months, who continues to work hard and do things like that. So I think that's probably, I think I can see the trade. I'm not saying he's going to get traded, but I can see it.
Can see it being realistic. So, that all could happen. We always appreciate the questions and the comments. When we come back, we're going to talk a lot about this division series that is now set, both the American League and the National League. How did they get there, and what do we expect? It's coming next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. And we got this great sale going right now to become a diehard. You can get one of those sweet, sweet hats like Jeff is wearing.
That's right. I'm modeling one today.
And it's just it's $59 a year, $60 a year, and you get that hat, or $36 a year, and you get one of the T-shirts. The hats are more valuable right now, so hence the price difference. But even that, it's only $5 a month for so much content. And I think you can see already we're only 4 days into the off season, and there has been so much to talk about, so much to write about, and then a whole nother wave of it is about to come. And then free agency begins, and we get another wave. You've got to be behind that paywall to get those stories, not just from Jeff, but from our Cowboys writers, Clarence Hill and Ali. You got to get it from our Mavericks writers, and Sam Nestler as our Stars writer. They're about to begin in earnest. So many reasons to become a diehard. Go to alldlls.com/join to do it, or just scan that QR code and become a diehard today.
Yeah, and the hat, I wanted to wear it today. It was my first chance to wear it to the ballpark. I wanted all the other journalists to be jealous of our sweet merch, and I wanted Chris Young and Ross Fenstermaker to see it and be like, hey, next time we're on their show, I hope they give me a hat.
Yeah.
Store.allcitynetwork.com is the place to be. We're going to have more hats, a wider variety of hats coming to the website within 4 to 6 weeks, which is awesome, and I'll buy each and every one of them. And John here just got a shipment of a new shipment of shirts, so he's up to 16. I'm somewhere in that ballpark. Got a couple sweatshirts. I can't endorse them enough. I'm wearing the Texas Chew shirt that you wore yesterday underneath the pullover. Again, I get chilly pretty easily. So anyway, store.allcitynetwork.com. Get your merch, and if you're diehard, you get 20% off of that merch.
What an accomplishment last night as the Yankees beat the Red Sox. And I know it's like, oh my gosh, Yankees, Red Sox, it's almost trite. It gets beat over our heads so much when they play each other, every time they play each other. But this was pretty dramatic stuff, man. It was a really tight game. Yankees broke it open in the fourth inning, and I was in the car listening on the radio to Dave Sims, my buddy who used to be
Dave
the
Sims.
announcer.
He's good, man.
Yeah, Dave's great. He's the new radio man in New York, and he used to be in Seattle for years and years and years. And he's with Susan Waldman. And in that fourth inning, when the Yankees scored their runs, I happened to be driving home, and somebody mentioned this earlier in the chat, just that the Rangers teams are doing this. She said, or somebody said, the good teams are doing this. And last night, Susan brought it up on the air. The Yankees in that fourth inning were just taking what was given, going with the pitch, barely slapping it out of the infield, doing whatever it takes to get that runner advanced and to get those runs in. There wasn't slug. There weren't home runs. They were just doing what needed to be done to score runs and basically doing what the game asked you to do. So that was fun. And then it really was fun to watch this Cam Schlitter go ahead and strike out 12 in 8 full innings. This rookie in his first major league postseason in Yankee Stadium. What a performance by that kid.
Yeah, that was outstanding. And really the other kid for the Red Sox early was doing very, very well through 3 innings.
Yeah.
The second time through the lineup caught up to him though. But man, it was good stuff. And I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
It is admittedly I didn't see the whole game, but I probably saw the last 7 innings. I actually missed the fourth when the Yankees scored their runs.
Yeah,
I can't remember what we were doing, but my wife and I just went for a little walk around the block. Took the dog around the block, come back in, it's 4-0.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a great performance by the kid, and they kept sending him back out there. You're like, oh, he's through 6. All right, he's done.
Yeah.
Like, nope, he's going back out for the 7th. Well, they had a guy warming, and it's like, all right, he's going to be done after the 7th inning. Nice 7th inning. He's over 100 pitches. Nope, goes back out for the 8th. 7 pitches.
Yeah, 107 total, and fantastic outing. And we said yesterday when we were talking about these two young guys, That you had Connolly Early, which is a very unique name for the Boston pitcher. The Yankees pitcher is from the Boston area.
Yeah.
Went to Northeastern, the college up there in that Boston area, and his name is Cam Schlitter. So take a look at the headline in the New York Post today, and you'll see why we were suggesting you got to be careful when you say his name. Holy Schlitt! Only the New. Yeah, that's correct. Lutz thinks I just swore. He's going to say I get one too. So anyway, I love the Post and their outlandish banner headlines on the back page there. But yeah, holy Schlitt, what a good game it was for that kid. Tigers beat the Guardians. That was also a highly dramatic game. And speaking of a hometown hero type beating your team, Dylan Dingler was the one who broke a 1-1 tie with the home run in the sixth. Now, the Tigers exploded.
Scored several runs.
Yeah, 5 more runs after that. But he hits a solo blast in Cleveland. Now, this is a kid from Maslin, Ohio, the Maslin, which is known as a football factory.
Right.
He came through there as a baseball guy. He went to Ohio State, and he is the only Tiger, as A.J. Hinch said after the game, the only Tiger that didn't get lustily booed when he was introduced every time, because those Ohio people know,
nice.
And they're loyal to Ohioans. But that's how Dylan Dingler thanked them for not booing him. He broke their hearts. So that was a pretty cool game. They get the Mariners now. I don't think this really offensively inept Tigers team lasts long against that pitching staff, Jeff.
I don't know. I wonder if surviving the collapse,
maybe,
and then surviving a wild card series, if it injects them with a little bit more confidence and energy that maybe has been missing. And I don't know. The Mariners, they're just a good pitching team. They actually have fared well against Tarek Skubal this season in 2 starts, and he's going to start game 2. What is that, Sunday?
Yeah.
They got a bullpen game coming up.
Unbelievable.
Back to the pitching chaos, it would seem. Open a series with a bullpen game. Yeah, I'm not for it either.
No.
And then the Cubs beat the Padres, and Yu Darvish only faced 7 batters, I believe, and that 9th inning, there's a little controversy because the leadoff, I don't know if it was the leadoff batter or the second batter, Xander Bogaerts, took a called third strike that was well below the strike zone.
Clearly.
And here we go. And from that point,
at the end of the game,
they were hot.
This is the umpires going through the tunnel to get, and look at the Padres players and coaches going after the umpire. And look, it's a bad look. First of all, I looked at DJ Rayburn's scorecard.
Yeah.
Wasn't terrible. It was in the 90s, 92 maybe. Again, that's an egregious call, but those things happen. You've got to be good enough to overcome a couple of bad calls. Now, if he's in the 70s or something, and missed a million calls, maybe you can act like that. That was a bad look.
Yeah, and just the way the inning unfolded, the next 2 guys were hit by pitch, so it would have been bases loaded and no outs.
Yeah,
and now if you want to try to reconstruct innings like that, I don't, that's always hard to do because you can say, oh, well, if he's on and these 2 get hit, there's no guarantee that these 2 are getting hit.
Everything's different.
And they're like,
might not even be 2 walks after that.
And they said, well, a ground ball up the middle would have scored a run. Well, that would have probably been a double play, and it would have only made it 3-2. They still would have had some work to do. But yeah, that and for Wrigley, part of the reason with these old ballparks is, the umpires don't have their own tunnel.
Right.
Right. Give them their own tunnel or give them a clubhouse in the outfield underneath the bleachers out there. Just something where they don't have to be exposed to that, because even at Globe Life Field, the umpire tunnel is close to the visitors' dugout, but separated by a camera well.
Yeah.
Plus their entrance to the clubhouse is on the back
Far
side.
side, yeah.
So
they're never
Excuse
gonna.
me. Yeah.
They're not going to interact at Globe Life Field,
Yeah.
and that's a healthier way to do it. But like Jeff said, that they didn't have extra tunnels built. It's hard to build another tunnel at old Wrigley Field. So yeah, I thought that was a bad look. We talked about Pete Crow Armstrong having a 0 for 7 or whatever it was in his first 2 games. Came up with 3 hits and a great defensive play yesterday. So he helped propel the Cubs to victory. So and I saw video of A.J. Preller. They said it was hours after the game on the field at Wrigley Field on his phone. Now, who knows who he might have been talking to, but they've got a lot of free agents, a lot of guys coming available for free agency this year and stuff. I'm sure as close as they got to the Dodgers this year, I'm sure this stings, right? To be ousted in the first round.
Well, and the second year in a row, that Dodgers Padres series last year in the division series was probably the series of the postseason. It was great. And they made some huge. They made the huge move for Mason Miller.
Yeah.
Mortgaging their future and building up this bullpen that was so great. But rotation wise, I think Dylan Cease is a free agent.
He is.
Arises, and Ethan there in the chat mentioned Arise. Yeah, that would be an interesting guy to have.
It would
on the roster. I don't know where you play him. I guess he can play some first and a little second, and can DH. So maybe if you are able to somehow move on from Jock Peterson, Arise would be good. Or first base and make Jake Berger the designated hitter. Point is, the Padres, AJ's had a lot of chances. The Padres owner has spent beyond their means, I think. And I know the ownership group is now kind of up in the air, I believe, with the death of the owner. And I think there was a lawsuit involved.
Yeah, between the family.
The family.
Yeah.
And I just, maybe there's some uncertainty with AJ. He left the Rangers for the Padres in 2014. He's been there a while.
Yep.
And he's taken some wild swings at this thing, and then had to pull back, and then taken some more swings, and just in a tough division, and then a short series on the road. It's tough to win. It's tough. So
tough to win. Hey, so the Dodgers, don't have home field advantage in the second round because the Phillies do. And they will play each other, the Dodgers and the Phillies. Philadelphia, where they had 31,000 fans show up. Now, it was free. They opened the lower bowl at the ballpark there for their intra-squad, split squad scrimmage on Wednesday night. They got 31,000 fans. I'll tell you this, man. Those fans, you can say what you want about how raunchy and rude and whatever Philly fans are. They show up. And 31,000 at a scrimmage is pretty damn. It had to be fun.
Yeah. I hope they open the concession stands.
Yeah, I hope they did too, because first of all, that's one way to make money. And speaking of their concession stands, during the playoffs, they now have the 999 challenge, and you get 9 hot dogs and 9 beers to consume during the 9 innings. I got news for you. The challenge is how many 99999s can you do, Jeff? Right? Like, I'm not letting one of those beers sit there till the 9th inning.
Yeah, do you have to do them in order? You have to.
They said there's a scoreboard on the little box and everything, but yeah, that's my point. Okay, it's a long inning, or there's a pitching change. I'm eating 2 hot dogs, drinking 2 beers.
Yeah, I would.
And I don't want my beer to be warm.
No, that's
unless
the
that
worst thing.
little case they come in is refrigerated, which I can't imagine. Looks like it's cardboard. So I'm not going to say I dislike the challenge. I like that, and it looks like they're trying to. It's a thing with Yingling, which is a Pennsylvania-born beer.
It is my official East Coast beer as well.
Yeah. It's a good East Coast. They say on their ads it's the oldest brewery in America.
Well, I don't know about that, but
it
is my East Coast beer.
Yeah. So anyway, that'd be a fun challenge to take, I think. And I think that's going to be a heck of a series. That might, as we said, the Padres and the Dodgers in the division series last year, that could be the series of these playoffs because those are two damn good teams.
Yeah. The Dodgers have, just when you think that they're kind of left for dead.
Yeah.
We got all these problems. And they still do, but they're going to have Ohtani pitching tonight.
Yeah.
Blake Snell's going to be able to pitch pretty soon.
And how about
Glass now?
Sasaki pitched in the clincher in the
Sasaki,
ninth inning.
Maybe he's their new closer. Yamamoto. So their pitching is actually looking just fine, and the offense is very, very good. The Phillies still, even though they don't have Zach Wheeler, they have some good starting pitchers: Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Nola. So they're going to be in pretty good shape too. This should be a really good series.
Should be fun throughout the playoffs. We'll be here to talk about it each and every day. We're back to Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock. You can kind of set your calendar, your clock by it. That's what we'll be doing all off season long, talking Rangers and baseball with you on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.